What's up, people? Yeah, I'm here. I want to speak on Hitler just a little bit. Um, Hitler, he hated the Jews. You know what I'm saying? He hated the Jews, and the bottom line, that's what led up to the Holocaust. So when you hate somebody for no cause or for no reason or whatever, then hey, this is what it leads to. It's simple murder. You know, how else do you want somebody to put it? Like you have I was intended to put up in here, and right now I'm just kind of lazy, but I wanted to put in there the new Black Hitlers because we do have our people. Clearly, you can see that they sold out a lot of our people, you know, to this situation. Let's see if I can understand this. In November 1938, German Jews forced es- escalated violence, showing many Jews that they were not satisfied if they stayed in the country during Nazi provoked rout known as, oh, I don't know what that is, Night of Broken Glass or November program on November the 9th, 1938. More than 25, 250 synagogues were destroyed, and 91 people were murdered. Countless Jewish businesses. I don't know why they always throw that word up in that Jewish, because they know the bottom line is you can't be, no such thing as Jewish. That don't even know. You know what I'm saying? That's I'm not even a scholar, but I do know. That can't even fit in with no Jew because Jewish people and the real Jews is of two different bloodlines. So you can't cross mix that and make it the same. Simple as that. Yeah. Many Jews except escaped the ghettos and went into hiding after relying on the support of non-Jewish friends to hide. A Jew was to put one's life and lives of one's family at risk. If caught, these hidden Jews were imprisoned or killed. Some some people hide Jews out of kindness and loyalty. Others did it for a sleep a steep fee, like Anna Frank and her family, who spent much of the war hiding and arms storm as I don't know what that is. Jews in hiding were often discovered and sent to the concentration camps. They were sent to concentration camps. The three Jewish persist global push check. Oh, I don't know what that is. I'm gonna have to go back over that. But the systematic state sponsored persecution and murder of approximately 6 million European Jews by the Nazi regain and its collaborators is known as the Holocaust. We all know what that is. The killing, the genocide. The genocide was driven by by Adolf Hitler's racial enthusiasm, ideology, which viewed Jews as an inferior race and extensional threat to Germany. That's simply that. That's the case right there. Because they wasn't the Jews and they considered them as a threat, man. Key, I don't see why people should be debating that. You know what I'm saying? What are you debating? Yeah, Adolf Hitler. Watch this in. The systematic state sponsored persecution and murder of approximately 6 million European Jews by Nazi Regime and its collaborators is known as the Holocaust. The genocide was driven by Adolf Hitler's racial enthusiasm mythology, which viewed Jews as an inferior race, which viewed Jews just like white people today. When they know that you're for your people, then they'll watch you just like they was watching me in Walmart, things of that nature. Inferior race and extensional threat to Germany. Key aspects of the Holocaust mythology enthusiasm was a core tenet of Nazi worldview, which drew on centuries of prejudice against Jews, combining it with modern racial theories. The Nazi blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War One. Okay, and its subsequent economic problems. They blame our people for everything. Escalational. The persecution of Jews evolved in stage beginning in 1933 when Hitler came to power. Initial measure focusing on discrimination and excluding Jews from public life and stripping them of their citizenship through laws like the 1935 numbering race laws. The Gold Law was forced. Immigration. Okay, the final solution with the outbreak of World War II. Let's go back up and let's look at the first, I believe it's the second line. Let's look at the first line. The systematic state sponsored persecution and murder of approximately 6 million European Jews by Nazi regime and its collaborators is known as the Holocaust. So that means the killing, the genocide. The genocide was driven by Adolf Hitler's racial enthusiasm mythology, which viewed Jews as inferior race and extensional threats to Germany. That's what they do. Mythology enthusiasm was a core tenet of Nazi worldview, which drew on centers of prejudice against Jews, combining it with modern racial theories. The Nazi blamed Jews. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. The Nazi blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War One, and blamed the Jews for Germany's default in World War One and subsequent economic problems. All right, let's get that in the Bible. Okay, let's look at that again. Mythology enthusiasm was a core tenets of Nazi worldview, which drew on centuries of prejudice against Jews, combining it with modern racial theories. The Nazi blamed Jews. The Nazi blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War One and subsequent economic problems. That's interesting. All right, hold on. This thing might be. I don't know. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. So Nazi blamed the Jews for World War One. They was. Let's look at this. Mythology and antis- antagonism was a core tenet of Nazi worldview, which drew on centrist prejudice against Jews, combining it with modern racial theories. The Nazi blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War One and its subsequent economic problems. Hmm. Let's go to Matthew's. So you have to understand all this stuff is in the Bible. It's a lot of work, but you got to flip. You got to know. It said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted." There we go. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revive you, reveal you, and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. That's only can go to the chosen people. He telling you right there that you're gonna have hard times. And people gonna lie on you, people gonna do all kind of stuff to you, they gonna look at you, misunderstand, just like they did Michael Jackson. All right. It says orthodoxy enthusiasm was a core tenet of Nazi worldview, which drew on centrist prejudice against Jews, combining it with modern racial theories. The Nazi blamed Jews for Germany's defeat in World War One and its subsequent economic problems. See that? They blamed Jews for for the defeat of World War One and the inferior race and extensional and World War One and its subsequent economic problems. When you look at Matthew chapter 5 and 10, the Bible said, "Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for there is the kingdom of heaven." So we see that we have those things in the Bible. Yeah, we got those things in the Bible. Yeah. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Right. And say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. So the Jews, we can see that Hitler really fulfilled Bible prophecy. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. This is context is actually talking about the Israelites. Let's go to Matthew chapter 2 and verse 6. The Bible says, "And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least amongst the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel." Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also." And when they had heard of the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them until it came and stood over where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Okay. Um, I might be done went too far. Let's look at verse 2. Matthew chapter 2 and verse 1. I mean, 2, 3. Let's start at verse 3. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Okay. Let's look at verse 16. Matthew's 2:16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth. That means he was angry, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently required of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, talking about Jeremiah. So Jeremiah prophesied that this would happen to who? That's look at Matthew's 2 and 6. Let's go back there. And thou Bethlehem in the land of Judah art not the least amongst the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. So when Herod saw that he was mocked of the wise men, he took and slew all the. It said, then when Herod saw that he was mocked of the wise men, he was exceeding wroth, and he was angry, and sent forth and slew all of the children that were in Bethlehem and all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently required of the wise men. So this is what they did. If you go and compare that to Exodus chapter 2 and the last verse of chapter 2 of Exodus, he said, Pharaoh said he made a law. It was his command. Every son that is born, you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. So we see that these things is accurately, it's the same even to this day. That's why the white man kills our people today in the streets. That's why you see this thing about police brutality, because that's the same spirit that's actually killing our people to this day. You know, when you actually talking about real topics, them people ain't gonna stay in here, because I guess what it is, you resisting. That's why the Bible said, and that's true. I believe the Bible said, resist the devil and he gonna flee. So you know, the white man is the enemy, so he gonna come up in here and he going to, if he hear you, they can't do you nothing when you're speaking on facts. But they don't care about the truth. You know what I'm saying? They don't care, but yeah, they don't really care about the truth. But you can resist the enemy. They won't have nothing to pull out on you and say you're making up something. So I'm gonna get up out of here. I'm gonna see y'all later. I'll be back a little later on today. I guess I'm gonna come back and name the video in another video.